This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Growing up, I noticed that my dad's home office had a lot of self-help books in it. It makes me wonder if there's like a genetic component to becoming obsessed with self-help. But at one point, I came across a book that isn't famous or recognized. It ended up being incredibly meaningful to me at the time. It's called A Rich Man's Secret. If I can find it online, then I'll put it in the description box. I'm not sure if it's even still in print, but there's a phrase that's repeated in that book over and over that has been incredibly helpful to me, especially when I've been dealing with overwhelm or not knowing what to do with myself. And that phrase is, take the next step, no more, no less, and the next will be revealed to you. I find this to be a very succinct and powerful guard against being overwhelmed by your work. It's a simple idea, but it immediately yields some incredible results. If you were to stop yourself at any given moment and ask yourself, what am I supposed to be doing right now? What's the next step? And sort of listen to the inner quiet voice within you that sort of knows what's good for you. Maybe the subconscious mind that keeps track of all your impulses, your imprints, your desires, your hopes. It sort of gives you an answer every time. At least that's what I've found. It's the strangest thing, but it's something I come back to repeatedly. You might want to try it now. Take a moment to ask yourself, what's the next step? Over time, I've realized that this phrase actually pulls a lot from the ideas in Taoism, especially this notion of always being aware, of being present, and being empty in the mind so that you can listen to a deeper insight, and being ready. In fact, David Allen, who had written like the quintessential book on productivity, Ali Abdaal loves it a lot, it's called Getting Things Done. He actually starts off of his book by talking about this sort of karate, martial arts type mindset of being a ninja, of always being in that ready, free-flowing state.
I am the League of Shadows.
And he even quotes rowers who have a phrase called swing, getting into swing. I think that's very similar to what's being described here in Taking the Next Step. He says this, it's a condition of working, doing, and being in which the mind is clear and constructive things are happening. It's a state that is accessible to everyone and one that is increasingly needed to deal effectively with the complexity of life in the century. And it's pretty interesting that David Allen would start off his book with this idea of getting into swing state, because his book isn't really philosophical once you get into it. It's about like filing systems and collecting ideas and knowing what to do with them at the right time. It's very practical, it's very pragmatic. So for him to start off with this philosophical idea of being in the ready state, I think it's very possible. But it's perhaps the most important consideration in today's world because our work has become incredibly complex. For instance, Thomas and I now, we have really ambitious video ideas that we start out every month with. And of course, the most complex of these video ideas are the director parody series. If you don't know about that series, we basically take inspiration from a new movie director every month and try to make a movie trailer that is of the filmmaking style of that director and compress an entire 2-hour story into 2 to 4 minutes. Honestly, starting those videos out, it's incredibly complex. You're trying to write like this crazy script based off some meme or some concept or idea that might appeal to men in their 20s who like self-help content, because I guess that's my audience, and package that into a movie trailer that is of a particular director's movie style. So if it's Tarantino, we've got to have those Hong Kong zoom-ins in it. If it's David Fincher, like it was recently, then the tracking of every subject of every actor or actress has to be direct in line with the movement of that actor.
Yeah.
One more, then
3,
we'll call a shot.
2.
Because Fincher's movies are incredibly methodical and the camera movement is completely in sync with the movement of the actors. If it's Guy Ritchie, it's this really playful, frenetic editing style where there's always subjects who are talking about something that's happening and then it flashes back to that event happening and then it flashes back forward and it's constantly jumping time. When you watch us do one of these videos, the final product seems pretty natural. Like this is the logical flow of events to make this video happen. But in doing these videos and shooting them, it takes like 7 to 10 days to shoot one of them. We're completely confused. What we're supposed to be shooting that day, what like the scene is supposed to be about. A lot of it is improvised, it's figured out in that moment, figuring out who we can reach out to. Who do we know that knows ballet? Who do we know who has a motorcycle? There's always a next step. Can I show a brutal murder and crime scene on camera? No, but I can buy a cheap blacklight and get the visuals of a detective on the search for something. Okay, that's the next step. Me and the other actors who are in the scene might start talking. We'll start improvising through like what the concept is in real time. And I knew he wanted to kill my boyfriend or something.
Yeah.
We're changing gears now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And well, just after she says, I knew he wanted to kill my boyfriend, she's like, was your boyfriend to Chad? And she's like,
yeah. And very frequently on those shoots, I'm just hoping to God that the ideas that I'm coming up with on the spot are good, that my instincts are good.
No, do the thing where you touch your face in between.
And very often I have to keep coming back to this phrase, take the next step, no more, no less, and the next will be revealed to you. All right, what's the next step? What's the next step? Set up this shot here. Let's shoot in this way. Face this way. And with each of those questions being answered, that next step being taken, we eventually end up with a video with 8 or 9 locations and a plot that begins to thicken. It's like perfect readiness. It's mind like water, as the Taoists would say. Of course, this is like the flow state that a lot of people have now written books about. But this phrase, take the next step, no more and no less, even helps me when I'm not in the flow state, when I'm not inspired, or I'm having trouble getting myself going. For instance, if I have trouble getting out of bed, I tell myself, look, just take the next step. The next step is simply to take a shower. Or if I don't feel like going to the gym and exercising, I say, what's the next step? Just put on the shirt, put on the workout clothes. That's all you gotta do, just take that next step. I've also found that getting into flow state is really related to one's physiology. So I know for a fact that at the end of the day, after I've had dinner, especially if I'm like visiting my mom and having her cooking, which is very heavy in carbs, I can't do any mental work after 6 p.m., not easily. It's like I'm pushing against a lot of inertia. And so the next step at that time will look different. But there is still a next step, like an appropriate next action that I can ask myself about and kind of answer. In those moments of grogginess after dinner, I can reflect on that phrase, take the next step, no more and no less. And maybe the next step at 8 p.m. when I come home with that grogginess is to clean the house. Or maybe it's doing a speed run of a Pokemon game while listening to a great podcast, because that's actually a guilty pleasure of mine. I actually really love playing Pokemon games on emulators and just like blazing through them while listening to like an audiobook or a podcast. And yet on the other end, when I ask myself this question at 10 a.m. on any given day, the answer will be more kind of productive. The voice within me will tell me, clean up your desk. Clean up your desk so it looks good. Did you do that? Okay, what's the next step? Log into Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Okay, what's the next step now? These are the requirements of your client. Work on this. Oh, I don't feel like working on this. I don't know how to troubleshoot this. Okay, well, what's just the next step? Okay, the next step is simply Googling the answer, seeing if I can solve for whatever this problem is. If I feel inertia, if I feel overwhelmed, I can always come back to the silence. I can ask the silence, what is my next step? And you always get an answer, and then you never get overwhelmed. All right, Thomas, what's the next step here?
I think the next step would be for you to talk about the sponsor.
Dude, why you always gotta do this? You're always making it about the money, dude. I mean, people are starting to notice a pattern here.
Okay, but in our last video, you got 8 actors and you keep insisting on using songs that get us demonetized.
Okay, yeah, but when the metronome was like, and then when it really hit the beat, that's where we had you with the hero shot with the gun. I know you like that, Thomas. I know that did something to you.
8 actors!
All right, yeah, you're right. Let's hit the sponsor. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. At times you might find that taking the next step involves using the internet. Without a VPN, you are more exposed to online threats such as malware, identity theft, ad manipulation, and price discrimination. In this regard, being able to hide your location using a VPN is especially useful. An amazing aspect of a VPN like Surfshark is that you can watch regionally blocked content by just changing your VPN location. So if I'm in the mood to watch a movie by David Fincher, perhaps as extra research in preparation for the next video, but a movie like Zodiac isn't available on Netflix USA, I can change my country location to Canada, which does have Zodiac, and that's just something I can quickly Google and find, and once connected, I can get to watching. For a limited time, get 83% off of a tier plan and 3 extra months for free at surfshark.deal/Captain Sinbad. Thank you, Surfshark VPN, for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. You can also apply this take the next step philosophy in a more specific, tactical direction if you want to work towards a specific goal, one that seems unwieldy especially. In fact, right at the start of Getting Things Done, David Allen talks about this. He lists this exercise which I found really helpful. He says this: I suggest you write down the project or situation that is most on your mind at that moment, what most bugs you, distracts you, or interests you, or in some other way consumes a large part of your attention. It may be a project or a problem that's really in your face, something you're being pressed to handle, or a situation that you just want to deal with sooner rather than later. Now describe this situation in a single sentence as like a question. Your intended outcome for this problem. In other words, what would need to happen for you to check off this project as done? He wants you to write out that situation as a simple sentence, such as handle situation with X, or whatever it might be. Now write down the very next physical action you need to take to get movement on that goal. No matter how complex it is, there's only one next physical action that you need to take. If you had nothing else to do with your life but get closure on this, what visible action would you take right now? Would you call or text someone, write an email, take pen and paper and brainstorm about it, surf the web for data, buy nails at the hardware store, talk about it face to face with your partner or your assistant or your attorney, whatever it might be? What is the next thing? Now, this has definitely been my experience, but if you write out that problem as just a simple sentence and then just just take a few minutes to decide what the very next step is, what happens is you get immense relief. You get just an immense feeling of like, okay, I can do this. I can at least do this. What created this newfound clarity isn't getting organized or setting priorities. The answer is just thinking. And not thinking a lot, just enough thinking to solidify your commitment about a discrete pressure or opportunity and the resources required to deal with it. People think a lot, but a lot of times we're thinking like really etherically. It's just a sea of anxious thoughts about what we need to do as a whole. But if you just pare it down to what's the next step, just as that Taoist mantra would say, it makes it easier.
I'm filming you on both freaking cameras, bro.
You're like so skilled at your videography.
If you're new to the channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel is a combination between comedy sketches and more genuine videos like this one. If that's something that appeals to you, then consider subscribing. And for those of us who are always willing to figure out and then take that next step, to us I say greatness is coming. Cheers.